third wanted Riviera, third wanted Bullhead, and third wanted anything but Bullhead.
Got sunshine and wide open space. From the river to the mountains, it's a special place. It's summer every day.
We're Bullhead City.
Entertainment and gaming are right nearby. Give your spirits a lift, give our city a try. It's summer every day.
We're Bullhead City.
Play a little golf, take a ride on the river. A vacation destination that really delivers. We're fun in the sun with a little attitude. Let our feel-good lifestyle happen to you. It's summer every day, whether you live, work, or play. It's summer every day.
We're Bullhead City.
Ooh,
We're Bullhead City.
come get your fun in the sun.
We're Bullhead City.
Deep in one of the hottest recesses of the 47,000 square mile Mohave Desert rests a thriving community in a beautiful Colorado River oasis. The now booming city of more than 42,000 residents from Davis Dam to Clearwater Hills defied great odds to become Arizona's hottest destination. Prior to incorporation, with a passionate population of only a few thousand, the citizens of several subdivisions known as Holiday Shores, Riviera, River Bend, and Bullhead would build their community from humble beginnings to a modern city in the desert.
What it is now is nothing as to what it was back then. Nobody knew about Bullhead City back then. When I came to work in 1982, the 1980 census had just come out, and there was only about 9,000 people in Bullhead City.
Before the city was incorporated, I lived in the area of Bullhead City that was called Riviera, and my friends and I, we played. We played ball out everywhere we could play ball. We explored around everywhere we could explore.
At least when I was raising my son, it was like raising a kid like Tom Sawyer. It was just so idyllic and so wonderful for the kids. I mean, they actually used to ditch school quite often and just be on the river.
I lived on Church Street, so we would walk to the river. I'd walk my dog.
We had the river and we had the desert. That was our playground. We had no malls to go to. We didn't particularly have any places like you do in different cities where you can ride go-karts and you can, water slides and things like that.
It was just very, very small, and we all kind of watched Bullhead grow up just as we grew up together as well.
When I got here, it was like, where's all the kids? Well, right now, they're all trap lining with their fathers along the mountainside. What? Yeah, and then every now and then a kid would come down the highway on a horse from the valley, and they'd park their horse and go to class.
We rode our horses all over Bullhead City. In fact, we used to go to the Double L bar. We would tie them up at the railing they had down there, and we'd go in and dance. They would have a band down there, and so we would go in and dance, and that was just about our entertainment.
I liked the rural setting, number one. I had come from a large area, and I liked the fact that it was like the Wild West in a sense. It was like we were burgeoning and we were growing and things were happening, and so an excitement for me was to be a part of it because I was right in the middle of it.
The first people to live in the Bullhead City area arrived hundreds of years before the 20th century. These pioneers built a rich history that is preserved and passed on by the hard-working volunteers of the Colorado River Historical Society, whose museum stands proudly in Bullhead's Community Park.
The timeline, then, for our history prior to modern Bullhead City would be about 7 different economic and other circumstances that would affect the development of this area. We start with Mohave. Then we have Father Garces. That's the beginning of the trappers coming. Ultimately, when the trappers revealed what they found about the area, then miners started getting interested. Then the U.S. government got interested because they needed to have a safer and easier trail for pioneers, and so they did that by hiring Beale among several other engineers who did layouts for roads and, more importantly, I think, the railroads. Then we had people who already lived here who ran cattle, and that continued into the 1900s. We also had commercial mining moving in the 1900s instead of just the small men, and that brought in actual towns, and it brought in interest, of course, like Hardy did, about bringing in more transportation, more supplies, more heavy equipment. It was a great time having people actually settle the area. That would have been about the highlights of that time, would have been up to about 1932.
Built initially upon mining and steamboat industries, the river community found itself reinvigorated once again in the 1940s by a gigantic project to build the Davis Dam, which would carry the region into the modern era.
Davis Dam was one of several dams planned from the 1930s to be built on the Colorado to offer more water to other areas, namely Los Angeles at the time, but to also to control it for electrical power and other types of irrigation. It was originally named Bullhead Dam because that's what the steamboat captains used to call a big piece of rock that stuck up out of the river. Ultimately, the dam was renamed the Davis Dam for the manager of the dam system at that time.
The demand for workers during the construction of Davis Dam brought the Colorado River into the public eye. These hard-working individuals brought their family members and friends to the oasis therein. Those who settled in the area formed the beginnings of subdivisions such as Riviera and the various other unincorporated developments along the waterfront. Growth continued to skyrocket throughout the 60s and 70s as developers heavily marketed parcels of land within the subdivision as the ideal getaway for individuals from larger cities.
We actually boasted about it being the hot spot of America, and come on down and spend your time on the Colorado River and cool off in the heat, if you will.
I forget how many years now. I know I first came here in 1972 just to see the river. I'd never seen the river before, and I ended up buying a single-wide mobile home and a boat all in the same weekend, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, I actually, came to Bullhead City because of the river and friendship that I had acquired over in Prescott when I was going to school over there.
Well, I came here in 1967. I came just to enjoy the beach and the lake, and I used to come with an aunt and uncle. They had a boat, and so we water skied.
While the river cities individually boosted healthy local communities, a combined benefit between the subdivisions would be necessary to secure the shared infrastructure and services required for a prosperous modern society to grow.
Funny, when I first got to Bullhead City, the corner of Hancock Road and the highway was a three-way stop. There were no signal lights in Bullhead City.
I got a picture in my front office of my office right shortly after it was built, and you could look down Highway 95 to the north, and there was nothing.
When I moved to Bullhead City, we had one traffic light in town, and Highway 95 was a two-lane road, and there was no turning lane.
When I moved here, there was a moto day and a Claypools.
The only post office in town was in Bill's Quick Stop Market.
They didn't have the money to put on 4 traffic signal posts on all 4 corners, so they stuck 4 telephone poles up, and they ran wires between the 4 poles, and they had one traffic light hanging down below it. But the garbage truck hit it twice.
Anytime it rained, and it used to really rain hard here, you'd go down into these dips, and the next thing you know, you'd be stuck. So you'd have to sit at the top and wait for the water to go by in the gully, and then you could drive to the next one and wait.
Incorporation became the talk of the communities, and the controversial process to bring the different subdivisions together under one charter was soon underway.
And it was felt by a lot of people that county government was inadequate and it couldn't provide the services needed for the area.
When Bullhead was created, it was kind of like a patchwork quilt, but not in a good way, right? Like this neighborhood developed and this neighborhood developed, this one over here. And there was not really an order or a plan.
When you're incorporated, that opens the door to more state funding and federal funding to a certain extent because you're an incorporated city. So there are revenue sharing funds that come into the city in addition to what come into the county.
I personally felt that incorporation was the way for Bullhead City to go. I certainly was not probably even initially in the majority.
Incorporation meant control. People telling you what to do, when to do it.
Well, there were a couple of failed attempts before it was successful, and it was highly controversial at the time to incorporate or not incorporate.
Well, at the time, I wasn't so sure. We worried about taxes more than anything. Most people felt, and not incorrectly, that some costs were going to arise because now, instead of just having the county, we'd obviously have other tax consequences and needs to generate and raise funds.
We were talking about incorporation, and there was a lot of different names that was brought up about what the name of the city should be.
The dominating subdivision out here was Riviera, and it had a post office. So about half the population wanted to call the whole area Riviera, and the other half wanted to keep Bullhead. Well, I'd say it's a third, and a third. Third wanted Riviera, third wanted Bullhead, and third wanted anything but Bullhead.
And then somehow we ended up with Bullhead City, and of course that was the talk of the town about where the hell is Bullhead City. I used to have some of the bumper stickers, but I don't have them anymore. I think they're in the Historical Society now.
A special election was held on August 21st, 1984, with a ballot count of 2,000 yes votes to 1,000 no votes. The river cities combined to officially become the city of Bullhead City. The Mohave County Board of Supervisors approved the incorporation election results on August 28, declaring Dan White, Greg Christensen, Gordon Lewis, Hank Say, Louis Tedford, and Al Sigliano as the city's first city council, along with Arvid Hoppus as the first mayor.
Richard Kaffenberger was our first city manager. He was hired by the city council. He offered me a job as his assistant, and I jumped at it. I thought, what an amazing thing this would be to help put together a new city. Right about that same time, Beverly Thomas was brought in as our first city clerk. Richard was employee 001, and Beverly was 002, and I was 003.
Probably more volatility happened after we actually got incorporated than before. The first couple of councils were not terribly experienced in municipal corporations, so to speak, and principally pretty much felt their way through the process.
We had to have a place to hold city council meetings, so the best place to do that was at Mohave High School and the cafeteria. But when it was time to come back to school, we had to keep moving again. What we needed was a city hall. And I remember Richard said, okay, go out and don't come back till you got a new city hall for us. The county was kind enough, it was the sheriff's department, as I believe, to give us our first place to call an office, I guess you would say, which is now occupied by a doggy care center, a grooming facility on Highway 95. And we had that 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 room, and that was our city hall. And there was a desk in there and a couple of chairs. And the only problem was we didn't have any paper, we didn't have any pencils. So I forget which one of us had this idea, but we ended up with a little metal pan, little bucket, and we passed the bucket. And our first mayor was Arvid Hoppus, and Arvid put a $25 into the kitty. And so Richard put in his 25, I put in my 25, and Beverly put in her 25, and that was technically the first city treasury. And so we're really starting up, really strong here with nothing.
The fire department and the Chamber of Commerce was a quasi-local government.
They had patrol cars that they got from another department that they had to paint themselves.
I was born in Needles, California, actually, because there wasn't a hospital here in Bullhead to have babies.
All the money they made off of that sale, they put into a foundation, which has brought the most beautiful things to our community.
How are you going to put a jail in this office building that I'm renting? So we bought a kit